Okay, hello everyone. I hope you can all hear and see. Chanukah Sameach, one last day to enjoy the holiday. Before I begin, I just want to correct. I don't think we have next Sunday. I think tonight is the last one. At least this is my calendar, so we can check later. Yeah, I think so, but you can check. Yeah, because actually next Sunday I have something else. But anyway, okay, we can discuss this later. Okay, so in this session that I thought is the last, I think, I wanted to discuss a slightly different Jewish culture than what we have done up to now, and this is the Jews of Iran. A Muslim land in the modern period, not in the Middle Ages or centuries above, although we'll go back in history to see where this community has begun and how they begin, because I think it will be interesting to see how Jewish art functioned in a Muslim country, and I want to use this opportunity to tell you, as I usually do, on the life of the Jews in Iran before, let's say, in the early modern period, before the establishment of the State of Israel, where many moved to Israel and then to the US. We'll talk about that. So I want to begin really that we are speaking of one of the oldest Jewish communities in the world, and everybody who knows the Bible knows this very well, because there is one book in the Bible that is dedicated to this community, which proves to us whether the story is based on facts or not. It's not our concern now, but it shows that there were Jews in Iran in antiquity, at least in the 6th century before the Common Era. And the book opens, the book of Esther, in describing the king, who he was, and then they speak about the Jews who lived in this state. And just to show the opening verses of the book of Esther, so we have the name of the king that everybody knows, Achashverosh, that scholars think he was Xerxes. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name in English. Maybe not, but anyway, that's the closest that we can get based on the name, and that he ruled over 127 provinces, from India to Nubia. You can look in the map, it covers like India to Ethiopia. And we hear that his administration, his capital was in the city of Shushan, about which we'll speak in a second as well, which is either Susa, ancient Susa, or some say modern city of Hamadan. This is what the Jews of Iran believed. And that his provinces included many nations, as we hear along the Megillah, the Esther Scroll, and generally called the Persian Empire. This is what we know from antiquity. The Jews of Iran, the book of Esther was very important for them, and I can show you already the beginning here that they, unlike other Jewish communities in Islamic lands, where there was prohibition against doing human images in the visual arts. The Jews of Iran, because of the local culture that is not really Muslim, I mean, Iranian culture is much older than Islam, they had this tradition of having figurative manuscripts, and so the Book of Esther was very popular among the Jews of Iran, as we can understand, and we have even some copies of it. I want to show you one of the copies that is handmade manuscript today in the Jewish Theological Seminary in New York, and it's called Ardashir Nameh. It's the Book of Esther, but not the biblical book itself. It's paraphrase of the book, much longer, with many midrashim inserted, many additional episodes, and it's not written in Hebrew. It's written in Hebrew letters, but in the Judeo-Persian language, yes, which is like the Yiddish for the Ashkenazi-speaking Jews. I mean, written Hebrew, German written in Hebrew, or Ladino, Spanish written in Hebrew letters. This is Persian written in Hebrew letters with a lot of influences from the Hebrew and so on. So the two episodes that you see here, and you can see Persian style of the Esther scroll. This is King Ahasuerus, and is now all these are the young women that came to his palace. One of them is he has to select who is going to be the queen, yes, from these young maidens. And here the episode that we see here is the hanging of the 10 sons of Haman. These are the Jews of Shushan, and you can imagine when this manuscript was illuminated in the city of Isfahan in the 17th century, how the Jews at that time looked like. And in this manuscript, I'm showing you it because there is one important episode for our story, and this is a midrash. It shows, it's not told in the book of Esther, how the queen, Esther, why she came to the palace, of course to deliver her people, but also she had a mission, and that mission was she was the wife of Ahasuerus, and she gave birth to Cyrus, and here is the episode of the childbirth of Cyrus. This is Queen Esther. She is kneeling down, and here is Cyrus coming between her legs, and these are the midwives that are supporting her, and we can learn, by the way, about delivery and you know how this let's say early childhood took place in Iran at the time among the Jews. But anyway, the reason I'm showing is the birth of Cyrus, and it's those of you who can read the Hebrew, you can see the names are written here, Koresh and Esther, among the Judeo-Arabic that we see here. So why the birth of Cyrus is so important? Because, of course, if you remember the book of Esther, we remember that King Cyrus, according to the Bible, is the one, let's say, Esther's son. Of course, it doesn't work chronologically, but that's a legend. He was Esther's son, and he delivered the Jews out of Iran, allowing them to go back, at least some of them, not all, to go back to Eretz Israel, to the Holy Land, and rebuild the temple. Yes, this is told, here is a miniature showing that, King Cyrus, and the Jews are around him, and he's giving them permission to leave Persia of the time and go to Eretz Israel. Here's another illustration of that episode that is told in the book of Ezra in the Bible, how King Cyrus gave them also the temple implements back, the golden temple implements. And so Ezra and Nehemiah could use them when they were restoring the temple in Jerusalem. So King Cyrus, the story about him is not a legend, because here we have a historical figure. So that's why the legend became so important, uniting the legend with history. And this is the king that we know from other documents, that he delivered some of his people, some of the minorities, some of the people that were under his sovereign, like it's told in the book of Ezra. And we have this cylinder that was found, written cuneiform script, that tells about King Cyrus and how he delivered different peoples. It doesn't mention the Jewish people, but we know that this is something he did, and he became famous for that, as is told in the book of Ezra. So Iranian Jews like to see themselves as the children of Esther. Here I'm showing you the cover of a book that was published actually in Los Angeles some 20 years ago by immigrants, Jewish immigrants from Iran to Los Angeles, to California, and they published this book. Human Sarshar is a good friend of mine, the editor. Esther's children, this until today, they see themselves as the direct inheritors of this couple that is in the Megillah, in the scroll of Esther. And so even the tomb of Esther and Mordechai, there is such a place. Again, we don't know if it's really their burial site, but there is a shrine that is venerated to this day, even today in Muslim Iran. It's in the city of Hamadan that I mentioned before, which was the ancient capital Shushan, according to Jewish tradition. And in this tomb, that you can see its picture today, and there are Hebrew inscriptions. Here are the two coffins inside, one of Mordechai and one of Esther, which is the place of Ziyara, as it's called, a pilgrimage that is done on the holiday to commemorate these two father and mother of the Jews of Iran, you can say. This is, by the way, a piyut that you sing when you are going there. So this piyut is done by a Persian Jewish artist and on paper, and this to be recited when you are on the tomb. And until a few years ago, I took this picture from a bulletin board in my neighborhood here in Jerusalem. You could buy a ticket here in Jerusalem or anywhere in Israel to fly to Iran to come on the yahrzeit of Mordechai and Esther. It calls you to come to visit, and there is the telephone number that you can call and buy your ticket to fly to Tehran and to visit from there to the city of Hamadan, to visit the two tombs. And so we are speaking about the Jews of Iran in the past, mostly. Today there are small communities that still exist, but in the past there were many, many more. Many in villages and many in towns. The vast majority were in the big towns, and I'm showing you some of the towns that were let's say the main centers of Jewish life in the past in Iran. And from all these towns we have ketubot. That's why, so it's important. So whether it's Tehran or Kermanshah or Isfahan or Yazd, Shiraz, Mashhad, and so on, from all of which I'll show you one or two examples from Isfahan, maybe more, because you'll understand why. But also, it's very important to understand that the borders of Iran of today are not the borders of Jewish culture of Iran, because there are two other communities that are attached to the Jews of Iran, and they are the same culture. They are also Persian Jews living in different borders, different states of today, or even in the past, in the last centuries. And one is Afghanistan, the Jews of Afghanistan, especially in the town of Herat, and you can see how close Herat is to Mashhad. The Jews of Herat are Mashhadi Jews, basically, are Jews from Iran that came to settle in this town. And Uzbekistan, the city of Bukhara, the capital of Uzbekistan in the past, were Persian Jews that came to Bukhara because the Shah at the time invited them to come to Bukhara, the capital at that time, to be merchants and to be dyers of blue. Not important now anyway, but they are Persian Jews who continue Persian culture in Uzbekistan. And so when we speak about the Jews of Iran, I always include these two countries as well, because they share the same culture, the same traditions, the same rituals, and so on. And by the way, until today, I want to show you, there is a periodical that is published here in Israel that is called Abba. Abba in Hebrew is initials of Afghanistan, Bukhara, Iran, Bukhara, and Afghanistan. Yes, and you see it's Abba is a journal for research of the study of the Jews of Iran, Bukhara, and Afghanistan, because, as I said, it's the same culture. And when you study this culture, you have to take it into account, the free communities. Now, living under Iran or under Uzbekistan and Afghanistan for centuries meant that you are a minority, meant you are a protected minority, but there are some rules that were already set in early Islam. Not all of them were followed, not in every country, but there are the basic rules that are, let's say, governing the life of Christian and Jewish and other minorities, but especially Jews and Christians in Muslim lands. It's called the Pact of Omar, and we won't read all of them, and you can find them in the internet, but I just want to emphasize maybe some, that you see how Jews were distinct from their neighbors in this Persian world, in this Islamic world. And they're like speaking, they're taking an oath before the ruler, and like this is to grant them permission to live among Muslims. We shall not build houses overtopping the houses of the Muslims. Meaning a synagogue cannot be taller than a mosque, for example. We shall not manifest our religion publicly nor convert anyone to it. We shall not seek to resemble the Muslims by imitating their garments. I mean, there is something is like the yellow badge in Europe. Here was the turban, the footwear. Notice the footwear, the parting of the hair, so that everyone can see when you are walking in the street that this person is a Jew and you treat him accordingly. We shall not sell fermented drinks because it's not allowed in Islam. In Judaism it's allowed, so the Jews are not allowed to make wine and sell it to Muslims. So when you look at some of the images that we have from Iran in the past, I want to show you one of the artists, a Persian artist, not Jewish, Kamal al-Mulk, that studied in the West and painted in the Western way. And he has this image of Jewish peddlers. They come to this, these are the two Jewish peddlers. They come to this noble Persian person to sell him some garment, which was a typical profession of the Jews, the petty merchants. And you can see how the two Jews are dressed. First of all, they are not clean. Their garments is torn in several places. They must have the belt. The belt was a sign that they are Jew also, and they're either walking barefoot or have shoes that are, very not, let's say, elegant. Look at the shoes of the noble person and of his garment and compare it to the Jewish one. So it comes by the way, because this artist was not intended to be Philo-Semite or something like that. He just wanted to show the reality of his time. And there is a British missionary that visited the city of Yazd in Iran, and he lived there for several years and wrote a diary of his experience, and it's illustrated. It was published in 1905, Malcolm Napier, and this is his book. It shows the different ethnicities that lived in the city where he was visiting. So there are different Persian classes here and different ethnicities. One of them is a Jew and his child. And you can already give you a clue because here is with the child. Let me show you the detail. So here is the Jew with his child, and you can notice what I mentioned to you before. The two shoes are different. Yes, so that, and that his child is barefoot, because this will be a sign of a Jew that he cannot wear the two shoes that are the same. But there is something that shows that he's different from all the others. He has a book. A book still is a sign of learning, and was a typical, I can say, attribute of a Jew. And even when he illustrates in this book that I mentioned, a Jew that is a writer, a noble person, and this is him, he is dressed with two different shoes. Again, I have a detail of that. Yes, I mean, he's dressed more in an elegant way. He has the book again, but again, to show that he is a Jew, although he's a rich Jew, he has to wear two different shoes. We have some photographs from early 20th century, or actually even from late 19th, of Jewish life in Iran, and you can see how the children looked like, boys and here girls, especially in the villages. They went with they cover their faces with like the Muslim women in this case, a lot of jewelry, I mean, because these are brides actually, so we have these images of how they looked like. The rabbis were also not, let's say, so elegantly dressed like in Europe, for example, in Italy or in Poland. They are very simple, very poor, and actually no Persian rabbi became a major important figure, and those that knew the Torah well and so on studied it usually in Baghdad. They went to the yeshivot in Baghdad to study there, because there was no major yeshiva in any place in Iran, because life was too difficult for the Jews to handle something like that, like in, let's say, more tolerant country. Okay, we'll skip that. Only when Alliance Israelite arrived in Iran, life started to improve for children especially, and we can see here a school in Tehran of Alliance Israelite, and with the teacher that is dressed in modern way. I mean, he's probably French, and the kids that are now taking care a little bit more, but still hungry and poor and so on. So the ketubot of this community are of great interest because Um, we have many actually that survived, and unlike what I was describing now, they don't show all this poverty. Actually, they do show at least the pleasure of Jewish life, you can say. Wedding was a major thing. People prepared for weddings a lot of time, and the contracts are accordingly. Every almost family would have an illustrated ketubah, not only the upper class. It's unlike Europe, and they're also produced by local scribes locally, not something given to an artist like in Italy sometimes or in other countries. They are very simple, artistically, but very colorful. It's folk art at its best. I'm showing you at the beginning here two, one from Bukhara on the left and on the right from Herat, from Afghanistan, so that you can see they are mainly floral decoration, very colorful, as I said. They are attractive, but not something the way that we know from Europe. The text is usually very long because it details the dowry. Here are two from Iran, the previous one of Bukhara and Afghanistan. These are from two towns in Iran, Isfahan and Golpaigan. Again, very colorful, very attractive. I have some even in my collection. They are not very expensive because they are not considered very high art. So, but we'll talk about them and see what they do include. They're totally unlike those that we saw last week. Yes, they're totally unlike. First of all, they're not written on parchment, like in Italy or in Europe in general, but they're written on piece of paper. And secondly, they are not so well planned. The illustrations are done directly on the page. There's no planning with pencil and then coloring and so on. No composition, as we say in art history, that is very well calculated and so on. So they are definitely different from European types. And still I would say that Iran is the Italy of the Islamic world, because like from each town in Italy we have a different style, different type of ketubot. The same is for Iran. Isfahan ketubot are different from those of Shiraz, from those of Tehran, from those of Mashhad, from Herat and Bukhara, and still they share many things together. They don't have episodes like this. This is the Sephardi ketubah. I didn't have a chance to speak about the Sephardi tradition in Europe and in Islamic lands, of the Iberian Jews. Here is one from Hamburg, of the Sephardim of Hamburg, that shows an actual wedding scene. Yes, you see the bride and the bridegroom and all the guests. It's like portraits even of the people who visited the wedding, because we know who they are actually, so it's not a problem. We know who the rabbi is and so on. So you have portraiture that you'll never find, of course, in Iran or in any Muslim land. We do have images of the bride and the bridegroom in Iran, but not on ketubot. I want to show you how the bridal couple looked in Iran, the Jewish one and where you can find it, for example, on amulets to protect the bride and the bridegroom, that were done separately from the ketubah and the wedding ring and so on. They are something more, let's say, folkloristic and not rabbinical. So they have these small silver pieces, as we see here, that have the images, or at least stereotyped images, of bridal couple. Yes, she is the bride here, he is the bridegroom. Yes, and here too, it looks like a child drawing. But anyway, we have their image, and then there are many protective, all kind of, let's say, abbreviations and so on, names of God that are written to protect them during the wedding. Yes, because the wedding is considered very dangerous moment if something goes wrong, if the bride is not found virgin, or he cannot produce children, the bridegroom, and so on. Things like that they were very worried about, and so the amulets were in need for that. So we also have, as I mentioned before, illuminated manuscripts in Judeo-Persian, and one of the most popular was a retelling, or like the story of the life of Joseph, who was the biblical Joseph of Genesis. because he was considered the most important biblical figure for Persian Jews after Esther. He is the one who is above the evil eye. He can protect us from evil eye. And so when they bless their children, they say always, Ben Porat Yosef, you are like Joseph, fruitful like Joseph. And so there are many stories told about Joseph, like Esther, that are paraphrases of the stories of the Bible and the Midrashim. And here is one of these manuscripts, Yusuf and Zulaikha, JTS again, from the 19th century, that shows the love of Joseph to this Zulaikha, the wife of Potiphar, from childhood. And this is the wedding scene. So here is Joseph, dressed in green. Green is the color of a saint, of someone, and he has a crown of someone who is like a holy person. And this is Zulaikha, his wife. The text is in Judeo-Persian, but I just want to show, I'm showing this because so we can see how 19th century Jewish couple looked like at the time of their wedding. No white dress and so on. This is all European. Here we speak of a different culture and so on. We have also, let me show you one more example and then we go back to the ketubot. We have also two panels drawn on wood, again from the 19th century, from the period that we call in Persian art Qajar art, Qajar. And here we have the bridegroom painted on a panel of wood, and the inscription is in Hebrew letters, but it's in Persian, and he's playing the tar. The tar, this is this instrument, musical instrument, like guitar, comes from the same word. Tar is something, a musical instrument, and it says arus, meaning the bridegroom, Shlomo. So this is our bridegroom playing the tar to his bride, and here she is Rachel, her name is, and she is looking at the mirror and putting an eyebrow. Yes, and by the way, the connected eyebrows is this is the Qajar style. Yes, I mean that was considered beautiful, and she's wearing both dress and pants. That was also the custom at the time. So here you have a Jewish couple. Okay, let's now look at the ketubot. What is unique about the Persian ketubot? One thing that is of great interest to me as historian of the Jewish marriage contract is that they're the closest to those of the Cairo Geniza. Remember, we spoke about it 2 weeks ago. We spoke about the architecture, we spoke about the micrography, and we spoke about this wedding song. This wedding song that I read to you 2 weeks ago, a wedding song, Shah Me'ula, Adorna Me'ulala, at a time of rejoice and happy singing and so on. And they also mention in this song that all the community is gathered to celebrate the wedding, and they mention the name of the head of the community. Yes, someone who is Rosh Yeshivat Goren Agula. Yes, he is always, let's say, participating, the head of the community or the head of the synagogue or the chief rabbi, whatever, and is mentioned in this piyut, in this song that is written in the medieval Cairo Genizot, Cairo Ketubot. And so this piyut is preserved in the three communities of Iran, Uzbekistan, and Afghanistan. Here is an Afghani ketubah from the city of Herat, and here is this song, the same song that appears there. This is now about 800-900 years later. Yes, so they kept this tradition. We don't have medieval ketubot from Iran, but we have from this period, from the 18th and 19th centuries, and they are still having the same piyut. Yes, in the same rhyming verses and so on. But they have much more. It's not only that. They have other texts that they added that are not in the Cairo Geniza. Let's look at two other Afghani ketubot, and you see, for example, I'll show you some characteristics that are of interest. There are 5 arches in all of them, and I think the number 5 is not by accident. Is to bring good luck to the bride and the bridegroom. Yes, Khamsa, like Khamsa. And there are 5 witnesses that sign, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. because 5 is again good sign. You need only 2 witnesses according to Halacha, but they usually would assign 5 witnesses. But there are, aside from the song from the Kairogeniza, there are other verses that are written in the border. Let me show you detail. And this is their tradition that is not coming from other communities or from the Kairogeniza. And they are the good signs. Yes, like you say, Mazel Tov is a good sign, yes, in Ashkenaz. Here you have many good signs, and they go in alphabetical order of the Hebrew alphabet. So a sign, Siman Ora, a sign of lightness with Aleph, a sign of blessing with a Bet, Siman Bracha, Siman Gila, a sign of Gila. Here Gila is a sign for you. You can take it, a sign of rejoice, yes, and so on. And so they go all the Hebrew alphabet to give you all the good signs that you can have at the wedding, and that you'll be protected. And then the end, you see, I now put it in this way so you can read, with the last letters of the Hebrew alphabet, a sign of fertility, a sign of tranquility, a sign of tshuva, of repentance, with the taf, the last one. So they go in this way, and in a nice way, but they have the wedding song. The same is in Bukhara. In Bukhara is a ketubah from Bukhara, and it has the same wedding song, and also it mentions something that is totally anachronistic, the name of the head of the yeshiva of the diaspora. There's no head of yeshiva of the diaspora, Rosh Galuta or Rosh Yeshiva Shel Gola. This term is not relevant anymore for at least 800 or 900 years, but they still have it because that's the tradition how to write ketubah. So they do it, and in every Bukharan ketubah, whether from Bukhara, Samarkand, Tashkent, other towns, you'll have this blessing at the top of the ketubah. Okay, I'll skip that. And now we go to Isfahan. Why I will emphasize Isfahan in this lecture, because Isfahan was the largest Jewish community, and it was in the past, and unlike in modern times, that let's say in the early 20th century, that Tehran became the largest, because until late 18th century, Tehran was the capital of Iran. Yes, until Tehran took that place and replaced Isfahan. But Isfahan was the capital until 1780 something. I'm not sure now exactly. But anyway, so you have the same wedding song in Isfahan, written around the border, sections of it at least. And it says, here you can see the name of the town, how it's written, Kan Isfahan. And they mention the name of the river, like we saw in the Kairogeniza Ketubot, which is situated on the water source, Zairin Rud. Okay, I want to show you this river. You can see it until today. Here is the river that is mentioned in every Isfahan Ketubah. Here is the landscape of Isfahan, so you can see some of the madrasas there. Okay, and what is interesting about Isfahan also, that the Ketubot, almost not every, but many, the vast majority, I would say, are signed by the scribe or the artist or both. Usually is the same. המצייר והכותב, the one who illustrated and wrote it, and we don't find it in Italy. I told you last week, I think maybe 5%. Here it's on many. So you have his name, the young man Moshe, son of Yeshua. Notice that the name of his father is written above, because he would not write the name of his father equal to him. So he puts it above him. So you don't have to read that this is the illustrator is Yeshua, but the illustrator is here, the name is written Moshe, son of Yeshua. Then you go up again. So that let's say to pay respect to his father, is above him, yes. And if you've seen a Persian family, when a child enters home, the first thing kisses the hand of his father. So that you have that here as well. The same, I just want to show some more examples, yes, that the artist is signing his name. And always is very humble. He says, he is the young man and the little one, and so on. Let's stay for a minute in Isfahan, and because they are the oldest also contract that we have from Iran. They are from the 17th century that we have some examples, and here are two of the earliest examples that we have. This one on the left is the Jewish Museum in New York. It's the oldest illustrated ketubah from Iran and from Isfahan, and the other one is in a private collection in Tel Aviv. And so I want to say, what are the origins of this design? I want to convince you that it comes from decorative arts of Iran, not Jewish, that the artists, this is what they were looking at, and this is what inspired them. So, for example, we know of Persian carpets, how beautiful they are, how attractive they are, how costly they are, and all this, and how much labor is put into making each one. And so here is a Persian carpet, and this is the ketubah from Isfahan, and you can see that there is a central section, flowers around it, and there is another border, two borders and close. And so definitely the composition, the overall design is coming from the carpets. Yes, you can see here is another carpet with the same type of, here also you have a vase with flowers, and here you have, this is the main motif above the text of the ketubah. Okay, so definitely the world of carpets was very influential, and also architecture. And now it's not European architecture. We look at this Isfahan ketubah. I want to show where the architecture is. You see the two lions here, and behind them there is, it's flat, so it's not, it's more difficult to understand. So behind them there is this arch that is going all the way up, and here are the two smaller ones where the birds are. Okay, so this design comes from Islamic architecture of Iran, especially of Isfahan, with the blue tiles. And you see there is an architectural model in the center, and around there is an inscription. Here is from the Quran. Here is this wedding song that I mentioned. And there are designs. It's all the field is, all the surface of the ketubah is with designs, except for the text that is left some lines here open, like this design of the mihrab, of the prayer niche in Islam, the direction for prayer. Yes, you can see even the same type of arches will appear in the mosques of Isfahan, with the multifoil arch, as we call it, like you see here. Yes, and you see that the same on the carpets as well. This type of arch that you see here, that's with the pair of birds, yes, like we saw before. Another source of inspiration are Persian manuscripts, popular Persian manuscripts, not, let's say, of the Shah, of the noble class, but common people, because there was no printing press in Iran at that time. So these manuscripts of the Quran were very popular, very common, and they are illustrated in the same manner that we see in the ketubot. Yes, so here is the Quran and the ketubah. Here is another one, and now look at the now look at the marriage contracts. What was in Iran, what is interesting, and also of something exceptional in comparison to other communities, is that also the Shiites illustrated marriage contracts, the Muslims of Iran. So this is a Muslim marriage contract, this is a Jewish one. And by the way, they are done, both of these are done like a small pamphlet. It's 7 or 8 pages long, like a notebook, yes? And these are the first opening pages of the Persian one, of the Shiite one, of the Muslim one, and this of the Jewish one. Yes, you can see a close-up of a Jewish one. These are the first 2 pages where the bride and the bridegroom are introduced. Yes, you have the blessings first, and then the date of the wedding and the names of the bride and the bridegroom. And then we go to the next page. There are several pages like that where the text continues until we get to the end of the ketubah, and the witnesses are signed here. Yes, so it's like, as I said, it's a small copybook that you can, the artist will prepare for you for the wedding contract. The opening pages of these notebooks, you look at two of them, and you can see, of course, they're of ketubot. They have the blessings, as we see, and they're good sign, and with the help of heaven, and so on. Whoever finds a wife finds good, and so on. And look at the Persian example. You can see that also the first page will have a decoration up here for the opening, and underneath the text. Yes, it's actually as a name even in Persian art. We don't have to deal with it now, but anyway, this opening of a manuscript, like the first page, is this type of decoration, sarlo, that is both also in the Jewish marriage contracts. And by the way, just before the fall of the Shah in Iran, there was a major exhibition in Tehran on the wedding contracts of the Shiite wedding contracts. Yes, and then there was another exhibition in Malaysia. You won't believe it. I have the two catalogs. Don't ask me how I got them, but I have the two catalogs. They are not on Jewish marriage contracts. They are on the Iranian, Persian marriage contracts of the Qajar dynasty. Shiite contracts, Muslim. Yes, and you can see how they look like. Not all of them are copybooks. They are like also large pages. These are two Shiite contracts. And here is a Jewish one, here is a Shiite one, yes? I mean, you can see how similar they are, how the division of the pages, one long panel with framed lines, the sarlo at the top, there is decoration. There are 4 medallions, one central one, 4 medallions, one central one. The right border is wider, and like here, and so on and so forth. I don't, you can read some of the essays and see all the details. And also one thing that is different though, between the Jewish marriage contracts and the Shiite ones, is that in Jewish marriage contracts there are no human figures, but there are animal figures. Yes, in many of them, and this is in none of the Persian ones, the Shiite ones, you have that. So here are two very simple. The decoration is not that sophisticated, but you have the animals that you can identify, whether lions or tigers. Yes, I mean, yes, you can see how naive it is, the illustration, but you have, and you can tell immediately it's a Jewish marriage contract. Yes, I'm showing you some more examples. Especially in Isfahan, these animals are almost, you cannot imagine an Isfahani ketubah without animals in it. Usually it will be a pair of birds, like here and here we see. Yes, here you see 2 examples of birds. This one. Here, look how many you have. You have one above, and then you have many tiny ones along the border. All the border is filled with pairs of birds. Okay, so what do they mean? Why they put so many? Here is another example. Yes, I mean, you can see how significant they are. I think it goes back to what we have in ketubot of other communities in the Sephardi world. And this usually, those countries that human figures were not allowed, you'll have these two, a pair of doves, you can say, the bride and the bridegroom, symbolic of the bride and the bridegroom. This is one is from medieval Spain, from the city of Tudela, the city of Benjamin, yes? So here you have the pair of that. And after the expulsion, look in Salonika, look in Izmir, you have this design. Look in Morocco, in Tetuan, 1, 2. So I think this is something when you cannot do human figures and you want to show the bride and the bridegroom in the ketubah, you'll have the loving pair of doves, like we see here. One of the most fascinating motifs that we have on Isfahani, on Persian ketubot, Isfahan in particular, are the lions. Lions, large lions, with the sun in their back, with sun with human face. No human figure, but the sun is human face. Here is a detail. Okay. Here's another one. You can see the two lions are like what we call heraldic lions, because you see they are like rampant, and the tongue is out and the sun is coming out of their bag. And the sun is, by the way, in Qajar type, the eyebrows are connected, as I mentioned before. So what is this symbol? Here is another beautiful example that I love. It's in a kibbutz museum here in Israel from Isfahan, with tigers instead of lions, and the two suns that look like human face of a woman. Yes. Okay, so what is this design? If you travel, I was not ever in Iran, but I was in Uzbekistan many times. And in Uzbekistan, you can find this in the city of Samarkand, in the main square of Samarkand. You have this madrasa from the 17th century. I want to show the detail. And you see this element, this motif. Yes. And you can compare it to the ketubah. This is the Samarkand tiles, the madrasa, the Muslim building. This is a Jewish marriage contract. So this design goes back actually to antiquity, when Isfahan was the capital of Iran. And this is the symbol of the city. This is the symbol of the capital. The lion, the sun, is a motif that appears already on ancient coins of Iran from the 4th, 5th century to the Common Era. And it's to mark this is the capital. Later it was incorporated into the flag of Iran when Isfahan was the capital. Yes, you can see here. In Uzbekistan, you can see it until today on these banknotes. Yes, 200 sum in this case. Yes, you have this design because it's like a national Persian emblem, you can say. And actually, there was one of the Shah in the 19th century that made a decree that it must appear on the flag of Iran, and he even describes in his decree how it should look like. The lion and the sun and the sword that you see here. This was on the flag until the fall of the Shah, until 1979. And appears on Jewish amulets. And why, you can ask why on a Persian Jewish amulet to have the sun with the lion. What's the reason? I think it's one thing is to pay homage to the king, to the ruler, like with the prayer for the government. The same you have in ketubot of other communities, let's say from India, the British emblem, or from Gibraltar, the British crown. And you have the same in Hanukkah lamps. I have to mention Hanukkah lamps today. So here is a Hanukkah lamp from Russia probably, or Poland of the 19th century, and there's the emblem of the Tsar, the double-headed eagle. So we have that in Jewish art. It's not something surprising. Sometimes the double-headed eagle in Eastern Europe has the name of God written on it, because it's a symbol of the Tsar, who is the king, but it's also a symbol of the King of Kings. The real king is God. And the same you find in Iran as well. On the belly of the lion, it says Agla. Agla is abbreviation. You are forever mighty God. Ata Gibor Leolam Adonai. So maybe they meant double meaning. The lion in our ketubot of Isfahan is the symbol of the capital of Iran, where the Jews were living. And actually, according to Jewish tradition, they established the city of Isfahan in the 4th century. It's unproven tradition, but that's their tradition, oral tradition. And so they wanted to show that, but the real God for them is not the city of Isfahan or the Shah, but the God in heaven. And sometimes even on Isfahan ketubot, you have next to the lions is what we call Shiviti tablet with names of God written all over it. So it's clear, I think, that that's what they meant. In the time that I have, I want to show finally two things more quickly now. Sometimes you find in Iran marriage contracts written in Persian, like this one, but I'm telling you it's a Jewish one. It's not a Shiite one, like we might think, because I already told you that there are Shiite contracts. This is a Jewish one. How do I know that? I'll tell you in a second, and for where it is from. Here, this is also a Jewish one. These two that we are looking at now are both Jewish. Here is of the same couple, yes, for the same wedding, one in Hebrew, one in Persian. You can see it's the same contract. It's the same artist did both at the same time. Yes, they are totally parallel, but one is in Hebrew, one in Persian. Why you have two marriage contracts? One is Islamic, one is Jewish. And how do I know this is Jewish as well? Here is another pair, one in Hebrew, one in Persian, of the same couple. Again, although they don't have the same names, because here they have Hebrew names, here they have Muslim names. So how do I know the same? They are the same. All these contracts come from the city of Mashhad. The city of Mashhad is the holiest city in Iran. It's the second largest today. It's a holy city, very holy to Islam, and there are pilgrimage and so on. As you can see how many visitors come to the city. After Mecca, I think is the most popular. And so in this city that are the Muslims are very, let's say, envious and very, let's say, protective of the religion. Anyone who is not Muslim is persecuted. So in this city, the Jewish community in 1839, in March 23rd, 1839, was forced to convert to Islam. There was a pogrom. I won't tell you now all what happened on that day, it's too long, but there was a pogrom and Jewish life had to cease. They could not live anymore as Jews. They had the choice either to convert to Islam or to die. So the community converted. They decided to convert because they wanted to continue living. And so they had to lead double life. They led double life, Jews in hiding and Muslims outside. So I want to show you a Mashhadi family. So as far as we are concerned, they gave their children, they put them in marriage when they're 4 or 5 years old. Here is a Mashhadi wedding of a Jewish family. The bridegroom and the bride, they are 4 or 5 years old kids. Why? Because if a Muslim would come, she is supposedly Muslim, this girl, and says, I want to take her to my wife, they will tell him, you are too late, she's already taken. So that's why they married their children very early. And they had 2 marriage ceremonies. One Jewish privately at home, only for the family, and one public Muslim for everyone to see. And so for each ceremony, they prepared a wedding contract. There was Jewish one for the Jewish wedding and the Muslim one for the Muslim one. Here you see a couple. Okay, these are photographs from our time, from the 1920s until the Shah, the father of the last Shah, released the Jews of Mashhad from this, from 1839 for a period of almost 70, 80 years or even more. They lived as anusim, as like Maranos, yes, as forced converts. Here is the family, Hakimyan, that is still today in Jerusalem and London, and this is the bride here and the bridegroom. Yes, it's amazing to see how they kept I'll tell you some examples of how they kept the secrecy. For example, they had the shops. They'd open the shops on Shabbat because they were forced to, but they would put this child in the shop, and when someone would come to buy, the child would say, my father is away, he will come maybe later, or tomorrow, come later. So they won't sell anything. Or they would buy non-kosher meat so that to show the Muslims that they don't keep shchita according to Jewish law, and they would buy the non-kosher meat and give it to the dogs, the cats to eat, and they won't touch it. But they would buy it so that supposedly they are Muslims. Yes. So how do we know from this contract that they are of Jews? because you can see here they are signed in Hebrew. Although the text is in Persian, the witnesses signed in Hebrew. This is the secretive language that they signed. Yes? And so here's an example that looks totally Persian. When I put it upside down, all these are in Hebrew. I don't know if you can read the Hebrew, but they begin with the word shahadat, which means in Judeo-Persian witness, ed, like in Hebrew. But anyway, they are in Hebrew letters. And also, next to the name of the couple, of the bridegroom and the bride, although the names are Muslim, they would write Jadid il-Islam, meaning a new Muslim. A new Muslim is like a new Christian in Portugal, yes? The same manner that they were using here. And that's why they became to be known, the community of Jadidim. Jadidim meaning the new Muslims. So finally I want to show you that they even did the Hajj to Mecca. They had to. So here is the tefillin of one of those who made the Hajj in the 1850s, and they are tiny tefillin. He went all the way to Mecca as a Muslim with the tefillin under his turban so no one can see. But he did not remove them all the way, walking from Mashhad to Mecca and coming back. And he's called Hajj, this guy. Yes, Hajj Aharonov, yes, that he came finally to Eretz Israel. And this is the synagogue that his family built in Jerusalem. The synagogue that you can still visit in the Bukhara neighborhood today in Jerusalem. And look at the sign, it says Bet Knesset, Hajj Adoniyahu Kohen. He went to Mecca, so he's called Hajj. And then he made the second Hajj, he came to Jerusalem. So here's the sign, Bet Knesset, it says, of Hajj Adoniyahu Kohen, of the community of the first converts of Mashhad. Yes. This synagogue you can visit until today in Jerusalem. And so when Zionism finally came to Iran and they started to, I want to show the last point, and discover Eretz Israel and so on, they started to make aliyot already in the first half of the 20th century, I mean even earlier, and they built their own neighborhoods in Jerusalem and so on, and the ketubot changed accordingly. So instead of the lions that were the symbol of ancient Iran, of the kingdom of Iran, now we have the stars of David. And inside, instead of the lions, yes? And inside them it says Zion, Zion. And the same is in Jerusalem, in the neighborhood of the Persians, near the Shuk, Machne Yehuda in Jerusalem, where you have the same design when they came to Eretz Israel. And this 1933 in the Rehov Agrippas in Jerusalem, you have the same design like in the Ketubah, in which they made their circle complete, and now they could come back to Eretz Israel and have their national emblem. And I just want to end with this. This is my student, former student, today professor, Orly Rachminian. She is Persian, from Isfahan. She got married and she called me to ask what ketubah she should have. This was some years ago, and I advised her to on Isfahani ketubot, and this is what she had for her wedding. She is not dressed as a Persian bride, but the ketubah looks Isfahani, and that's the tradition that she continues and teach about to her students today. Okay, so I'll stop here, and if there are questions, I'll be happy to reply.
First of all, just a huge thank you. It's been so informative, and so many people have written to say how interesting and just so much detail has gone in. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Because there was that crossover of the ketubot looking similar to the carpets, is that because maybe the artist also works on carpets? Were the artists Jewish? Did Jewish people also work in the carpet industry? Was there a crossover?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did, especially in the city of Kashan. Kashan was a big center of carpet making, and there were Jews that also were working there. And actually, I mentioned now the Zionist movement, and with the Zionist movement, they started to make Zionist carpets with images of the Kotel and the Jerusalem and the Temple Mount and so on, showing their, how they miss Eretz Israel. So we know there were Jews who were making carpets as well. Yes, especially in Kashan, as I said.
And with the lions, is that just meant to be a symbolic thing of power, or the actual lions that were common in
Well,
Iran?
the lion, also, let's say, Great Britain, the lion is a heraldic emblem. I mean, you have lions are guarding the shield, the coat of arms, is in many cultures from antiquity, and Iran as well. The lion is the king of animals, as we say, and it's selected like the eagle, to be on heraldic shields, on a coat of arms. That's very common. You have lions guarding the entrance to the palace and so on. I mean, statues of lions, because of this, because of the symbolic power, as you say, that they have.
Mm. You just like in every session brought us such amazing ketubot from so many different places. How did they survive? Because a lot of them you showed were from libraries, and we can see that you gave the example that from the Cairo Geniza. But all the other ones, where did they come from? Were they passed down family to family and then donated, or how are all of these preserved?
In Europe, they were preserved better, especially in Italy, because they were beautiful and that families kept them. In Islamic lands, there was no tradition of something beauty to preserve from the past. So they'd usually throw them away. So that's why we have the ketubot that I showed you from Iran today are mostly 19th and early 20th century. They were brought by the people who are direct descendants of the original couples. They are not centuries ago. We don't have anything medieval except the Cairo Geniza. We don't have anything that survives from the Middle Ages. From Europe, we have some. Again, it's seemingly we have many. But if you think of how many Jewish weddings have been in the past, it's a tiny bit. We don't have the ketubah of Maimonides, not of Rashi, not of any great person like that. We have quite a lot, but they are relatively in small number still, because they kept at home. They were kept at home, and so the families who did not move much kept them. For example, the ketubot that we have in medieval from medieval Spain before the expulsion, are not in Jewish hands. They're in archives in Spain because they were taken already before the expulsion as a testimony or something to tell about the couple, let's say, to show their possessions, to show this is a family. So they were kept by the archives of the kings and so on, and not by the families. So each one is a story. I mean, what was kept. The oldest ketubah from India, for example, that we have from Cochin, is because the bridegroom was Ashkenazi, European one, who came to Cochin and got married there and took his wife back to London. So this ketubah ended in London and was kept there, and that's how we have the oldest ketubah from Cochin. And so its story is a different, yeah.
And what made you originally interested in this whole line of art in ketubot? Because you said that you wrote your PhD on it.
Yeah, it's there is this song of John Lennon that you plan and life happens. I did not plan it. I mean, I came to UCLA to do my MA in Byzantine medieval Christian art. That was my goal. And then maybe forget about it and do whatever I would find a job in. But while I was in Los Angeles at UCLA taking classes in art history, the director of the Jewish Museum in Los Angeles, Nancy Berman, the director of the Skirball Museum in Los Angeles, the Jewish Museum of the Hebrew Union College, heard about me, and she offered me a job, like a few hours a week, to catalog their ketubah collection, because she said, you know Hebrew, you're an art historian, and we need someone to decipher this for us. And they have a nice collection of, this was my first book, so I started to catalog them, and I thought I'll find a lot of literature, because I was used to read about Rembrandt and Leonardo, Picasso, all this art. I thought, must be a lot of information. But when I started, I saw there's nothing. So I started really to, let's say, because of my studies and got so deeply into this topic, and everything was new, it was found to be a good topic for dissertation. So, and the rest is history, as we say.
Okay, and what's your favorite ketubah?
My favorite ketubah. Wow, it's very difficult. It will probably be some Italian ketubot from Venice, because I love Venice so much, like those that you saw last week. These ketubot, the Venetian ones are so, let's say, you are used to think that in Judaism the best creativity is writing it's a text about the Bible or in commentary and so on, in the past, and while these ketubot of Venice are visual interpretations in this way. They interpret Jewish life in a visual way when an artist, a Jewish artist, was not educated to become an artist. He was not educated in a school and so on. And still there were some talented people there, influenced of course by what they saw around them, that invested a lot into the arts of the time and to Jewish sources and combined them together in the best way. And I think Venice, that's why I selected Venice last week, is primary in doing that.
Amazing. Thank you so much. This is actually the last one in the series. You are correct. So thank you very much for all of so many people have commented on how enlightening and how professional and how much abundance of information you've provided us. So thank you so much, Professor Sabar.
You're most welcome, and continue to enjoy. And if you have a nice ketubah at home, or children is getting married, invest in it. It's good.